Hey there everyone, Russ Hamilton here from Keepers of Chaos. Anyway, I had a request to do a subject. I think someone just wanted to pick my brain on a couple of things. And so that subject was 18-year-olds in corrections. So we're going to go into this, we're going to delve into it. If we want to, just pluck the low-hanging fruit here, it's easy to say that, 18-year-olds are generally immature, not ready for this type of authority, not ready for this type of responsibility. But you know what? In order to be fair to the subject and in order to try and treat it in a comprehensive fashion, especially if we're going to be making, policy, procedure, hiring practice based on this kind of thing, I wanted to really, give you guys some more meat on the bone, as it were, as to whether or not this is a good idea, as to whether or not this is the wave of the future, as it were. So let's get right into it, and we'll just start talking about why is this happening at all? Why are we looking at this? And, it just really strikes me as one of the things that's really kind of got this going in some departments right now is simply the fact that there's not enough manpower. Every place is short. Every place is, hiring people, for overtime, mandatory shifts all the time. Those things are having a bad impact on morale. They're having a bad impact on some of the budgets and things. And so this is their stopgap measure. So is this a good idea or not? Before I start, actually saying yes or no to that, let's take an examination of why this works or why it's been instituted. And so the thing that you can see is we have hiring pools, and in these hiring pools, only a certain number of people are eligible, and only a certain number of people will take the job. And that's kind of all that they're interested in, right? They are just interested in just this right here, right? Filling positions. Boom. So if that's all that we're interested in is filling positions, it's great. Man, it's fantastic. We're gonna fill positions because that's what we've been mandated to do. Fortunately or unfortunately for corrections, depending on which way you want to look at this, that is not all that corrections does, is fill positions and, operate a plant. We have other competing things that go along with that, not the least of which, let me hit this right here. All right. Not the least of which is this. Public safety. All right. So we have public safety going on. Can we really be affording to hire these individuals that we've now said, are immature and perhaps irresponsible and perhaps, don't have enough life experience for us to know if they're even going to work out? Yeah, that should be a factor. That should be something that we should be considering. So one of the things that I've heard people talk about all the time when they're trying to justify doing this is the fact, well, what about young people in the military? I'm going, yeah, that's a great point. Right up until the time that you actually make a valid comparison. Because when you're making that comparison, you're only looking at the ages, right? So someone who is motivated enough to go in and sign up for the United States military might be an outlier for this event in this pool of people that we're looking for, right? The people that fall within the age groups, the people that, fall within, the amount of physical prowess that they have to hold down the job. The fact that they, can't be an addict, they can't be a felon, they have to have some type of ability to clear that background check, as it were. So all those things diminish that pool of people to a degree. And when they try and open it up to the 18-year-olds, and we just want to make a blanket statement like, hey, it's cool because the military doesn't, right? Well, we're not the military, right? And we have to understand what it is that our officers do on a day in and day out basis, and they're very, very autonomous, right? There's 18-year-olds in the military, they have sergeants and so forth that are right there, direct and constant a lot of times. They don't have to be a self-starter, and they are not exposed to some very much older, more sophisticated type of people that happen to be very, very much into the criminal lifestyle and the criminal mindset. The kind of people that can manipulate youngsters like that, the kind that can take advantage, and the kind that can do what? The kind that can negatively impact public safety through those types of manipulations. So that's another thing that we really do have to consider when we're talking about opening up that pool to these 18-year-olds. So let's just talk about that for a minute. The pool that we open it up to aren't the best 18-year-olds. They're just any 18-year-old. So do we have the manpower to go through all of that when we're trying to fill all those positions that I was talking about? We probably don't. And we don't have any way because, at that age, they don't have any real background for us to look at. They don't have a really relevant work history. At least most of them don't. So if we're opening things up that big, we're actually diluting our talent. And that dilution of talent can impact us once again negatively for the public safety, let alone the other types of safety that we're invested in, which are not just public safety, but also staff safety and inmate safety. So with having staff safety and inmate safety in there as well, once again, is it a good idea? Should this be something that we're looking at, right? Why aren't we attracting better talent at an older age that maybe do have some life experience that we can look at when we're going to go out there and we're going to start hiring people, and something to compare it against and a way to decide, is this a good candidate? So rather than flailing around and just looking at and trying to make the pool as big as possible so you can just start getting bodies in there and just filling positions, as I said once again, why aren't we trying to make the pool bigger by doing some other things? Maybe instead of this age being 18, right, maybe it should be 21. And maybe not just should it be 21, but we should be trying to attract people that are 21 looking for a career rather than for a summer job. All right, I think that's a valid point, don't you? We start looking at all of this that's going on, and we can say some of these people that are 21, it's a smaller pool to pick from. Some of these people that are 21 are going to have a little more life experience. Maybe they've actually been in the military. Maybe they've had an honorable discharge. Maybe they've had some experience with actually having some heavy duty responsibility placed on them. 18-year-olds, it's going to be very, very hard to find that type of 18-year-old. Do we have the manpower to go through all of those people and find it out? Probably not. So maybe a little bit older, a little bit wiser, a little more meat on the bone that we can take a look at and decide whether this person fits what our mission is. And our mission is public safety, staff safety, and inmate safety. So when we look at it from that perspective, yeah, maybe that 18-year-old isn't looking as good. So what do we do to try and attract those 21-year-olds, those 22, 23, 24, 5-year-olds? Well, we have to start thinking about doing some things that people don't want to do when they talk about budgets. We have to start talking about pay, right? You think the 18-year-old cares much about how much he's being paid? Is that perhaps a reason why we're just going to let that slide if we're those HR people and we're saying, hey, you know what? We can make it look like they're getting paid good and it's really not all that great. And then they're just going to go ahead and fall for it, right? Well, what happens to these 18-year-olds when they're 19, right? Yeah, this pay isn't looking as good as it did back then. I have some real world experience now. You know what? I ain't really with corrections as much as I thought I was going to be. Maybe I wasn't even thinking about it in those terms. Maybe I was just at the point where I just wanted a job and it seemed like a good fit at the time, and now it doesn't. And so I want to go do something else, right? You got to think about this. What have we done with this 18-year-old, right? Well, we've put him through an academy. We've given him all this training. He has to spend X number of hours per month doing some kind of other training besides just being out there on the line. And so what have we done? We've just frittered away all those training dollars. We've just, managed to, okay, we're going to hire someone else now, and we're going to spend a bunch of money on them, and they're 18 too. And what have we done? We've just thrown a bunch of good money after bad money, and we're just rinsing, lathering, and repeating the cycle. So is this good, hiring the 18-year-olds? The more I think about it now, is there really a good reason to open up that pool? Why don't we wait? How do we attract good people? How do we attract people that are going to stay in there, that aren't going to waste our training dollars, and they're going to look at this as a career? And what do those people that look at this as a career do, right? They're much more committed and dedicated to public safety. They're much more committed and dedicated toward the staff that they work with as their brothers and sisters that they're going to go balls to the walls for, right? And they're going to be more committed even to the inmate safety, right? Because what do, right? We raise our hands, we swear to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state that we work for, right? So that's a little bit more responsibility, right? And maybe with that, also if we were expressing that in dollars, right? Then maybe we'd get some better candidates, some people that are more committed to all of this. So what's the ultimate solution? All right? I'm going to present to you what the ultimate solution is. All right? And this is a concept, I've talked about it before, but we're going to go through it just real quick. STEP. All right? This is how we get good qualified candidates, and we don't have to muck around just making a bigger pool all the time. We can make our pool much smaller, actually, and have people actually applying for the job. So let's talk about S first. Every single officer that's a correctional officer should have this status, all right? And by status, I mean peace officer status. That badge that goes along with raising your hand to, protect, defend the Constitution of both the state and the feds, right? When you swear that oath out there and you remain committed to it and you are dedicated toward it, you may not go anywhere. You're going to be more inclined to stay within that chain of command and actually promote upward. So we've got that. All right. Status is a big deal because it makes you believe in the mission and it makes you take much more pride in what you're doing, and we're less likely to squander those precious training dollars. And we're more likely to also keep all of that experience within our department or similar departments and be able to draw on that for what? For public safety, for staff safety, for inmate safety. All right, let's go with the T here. Training. All right. If we provide good, solid training, the kind that they can use anywhere, with other departments even, are they more likely to be loyal? Are they more likely to stay? Damn straight they are. We also have what? We have that mission I've mentioned a bunch of times already, where we talk about public safety, where we talk about staff safety, where we talk about inmate safety, right? Training gets us to be able to accomplish that mission, all right? E. If we're giving people good safety equipment, you think they're more likely to stay? You think they're more likely to join up if your department provides them with a vest and a baton and an MK9, OC spray, and then, at all of your little micro armories across your facility there, you've got 40 millimeter projectile launchers and things that you can use to take back that yard if necessary. And what's that come back to? It comes right back to our mission. It comes right back to our mission. Public safety, because we're keeping them from escaping, right? Staff safety, we're putting down the riots. Inmate safety, we're putting down the riots, and we're actually managed to keep them from killing each other, all right? P, not last, except in the last letter of step there. P, pay, right? Pay that's commensurate with equipment, training, and status. That's what we should be doing, people. That's why we shouldn't be messing around trying to hire 18-year-olds. I know everyone's going to say, yeah, well, I know an 18-year-old that was such and such. It's not what we're doing here, right? We're trying to find the best pool of candidates by narrowing it down, not expanding it. You know, I'm sure somewhere out there, there's a 12-year-old that could handle this job. But are we going to spend $1 million looking for that individual? Anyway, I hope this makes sense to you. I hope it gives you guys some ideas if you're actually involved in what your department's doing with regards to talking about how we're going to fill these positions, right? And, you know, when you've got a training budget and you're spending it all on training that goes right out the window because, you know what, they made it through the academy and then plus 2 or 3 weeks and they were done, or even a year. I mean, let's not go, you know, flushing all of those great training dollars down the drain. Anyway, I'm Russ Hamilton. This was a requested video. I hope all of you enjoyed it. I hope it gave you, you know, something to think about. Be safe, people. Don't let complacency bite you in the ass.